Recently on Twitter, there's been this really fucking stupid discourse following the premiere of Science Saru's The Ghost in the Shell. This newest adaptation aims to be pretty one-to-one with the original manga by Shiro Masamune, a bit of a departure from previous versions which all, to varying degrees, have their own take on the story. I don't want to get too stuck in the weeds with all the discussions surrounding this specifically. It's quite frankly headache-inducing just seeing some of the takes out there. I more just want to use this as an opportunity to talk about something I've noticed over the years when it comes to any and all adaptations, but particularly with comic books and manga. Just as a jumping off point, I will unfortunately be showing you a couple tweets and dissecting them a bit. So, in the manga and this new series, protagonist Motoko Kusanagi starts off quite cocky, expressive, and, for lack of better descriptors, somewhat moe and quirky. In Mamoru Oshii's 1995 film version, she expresses her angst with a more dissociated disposition, and the film overall is more moody, chic, and naturally condenses the narrative to be feature-length. In this tweet here, in response to a clip of Motoko in the new series acting goofy, someone says,
Mamoru Oshii kept this Motoko from us for 30 years. The real Motoko is now truly out there now.
So, my only real response to this sentiment is basically the thesis for what I'm talking about. I have no problem with, and often really enjoy, when something is adapted faithfully to the source material. This can mean lots of things, whether it's something like Edgar Wright's Scott Pilgrim vs. the World, which takes liberties but keeps the energy and many key and small moments from the original comic, or the recent Chainsaw Man the movie Reza arc, which maintains just about all of the original story and visually sticks to Tatsuki Fujimoto's illustrations. However, I don't understand the sentiment even in the case of Oshii's Ghost in the Shell, which vastly overshadows the manga in popularity, that this somehow has, up until now, been a replacement for or hiding the original. I think this speaks very clearly to my thinking that a lot of people tend to both disregard and hold up source material to a ridiculous pedestal when it isn't film or television. Now, the person who posted this has clarified that they do own the manga, and this distinction isn't a new discovery to them in particular, and they make the point that other adaptations have also trended towards the film style. Theirs is but a singular voice in a sea of voices. However, I think this framing does still undermine the validity of the source material. In my opinion, to suppose that this TV show is now bringing to life the story in a more valid way than prior both puts down other interpretations and lessens the value of the manga. This is something I've been seeing steadily grow in acceptance. The idea that the more faithful and accurate an adaptation is, the better it is by default. I think this comes in part from many being burned by poor attempts at stories in film and television that deviate in ways often bizarre, unnecessary, or in a way that portrays a misunderstanding of the story. Dragon Ball Evolution might be the most easy example of this, taking a very well-known manga and anime and twisting around so many elements that it becomes almost unrecognizable, as well as being very lacking in its own right. In an almost trauma response way, many online will now praise or decry a new show or film based solely on its accuracy or lack thereof to what it's based on. I empathize with wanting to see something you've loved portrayed on screen just as you remember. I personally was burned, funnily enough, with a previous work of Science Saru, when their Scott Pilgrim show was initially marketed as though it were pulling from the comic series, only to pull the rug and reveal itself as a new story, acting more as a sequel or do-over in the vein of Serial Experiments Lane's rebuilds. The key difference here, though, is how it was presented to the audience. Importantly, I also had issues with the news story by itself, but that's a gripe for another time. I think this line of reasoning can and has been misplaced broadly. Something being exactly like the source material has become the only valid way to create in these people's minds. To this, I'd say, why? I love Brian Lee O'Malley's Scott Pilgrim, and the idea of reliving it in a new form was exciting. But those original comics are and will always be just as special to me. They're just as valid a form of this story. They exist now and forever, fully realized. Adapting, twisting, adding to, and subtracting from established works is a damn near foundational element of modern franchises. Sam Raimi's Spider-Man changed quite a few things about the character, namely giving him organic web shooters instead of ones he designs himself, something that previously was an indication of Peter Parker's intelligence, his ability outside of the superpowers. And yet these are still, in my opinion, the films that get the character's core appeal best. The change in web shooters was a consolidation made to maintain prospective audiences' suspension of disbelief, which honestly makes sense when such emphasis is placed on his family's unfortunate financial state. He's always shown to be brighter than his contemporaries and impressing figures of authority in his life. Despite superficial change, the core appeal is still there, and the film is able to explore these concepts on its own terms. This example is a relatively small change and something I can understand still not loving, but it's something devotees to comic books might take real umbrage with, the kind of small detail that might blind one to the larger picture. I think the recent usage of the term LARP in popular culture, being used to describe someone engaging with something at a surface level and feigning a deeper understanding, gets at part of what I'm talking about. I can't help but see how many who want these kinds of carbon copy adaptations have an interest in surface elements of a franchise but lack the interest in dedicating themselves to reading a book or playing a game, instead wishing for a TV show or film that might offer a more passive experience that still showcases the full picture, something that allows them to feel an attachment to the work and its fandom, in the worst cases, being a fan without actually liking what it is they're a fan of. In the afterword of some earlier English releases of Ghost in the Shell, author Shiro Masamune has this to say about the many versions of his story. In its basic premise, this work includes a backbone similar to that in any old TV cop drama series, and therefore lent itself well to spin-offs and development, but my manga in itself departs from this structure in order to be self-contained as a book in its own right. This is not a manga created with the intent of continuing indefinitely as a series. This fact cast its shadow on the development of the TV anime series, but the treatment that the anime production team opted for ultimately made it into a well-accomplished piece. The manga of The Ghost in the Shell didn't place importance on its sustainability as a series, because it is faithful to the idea that works in different media, be it film, TV series, manga, or novel, should each be optimized to its own art form. This actually means that the most basic series of the most sustainable structure, or the definitive manga series / TV anime series of The Ghost in the Shell, which should have existed, still does not, or perhaps never will, exist. To wish for a more perfect situation would be selfish, so I dare not. But there is still room for improving the world of The Ghost in the Shell.